Welcome to another episode of Breaking Mayberry, the show about two men who try to understand 2018 America by diving into old-timey America with the A.D. Griffith Show. I'm Marty Schneider.
I'm Dan Ledwig.
And we have a special guest today, digital storyteller and my co-host on the occasional political theater podcast, Miss Marta Rusek.
Hi, everybody. How's it going?
Glad to have you on the show.
Glad to be here.
And the reason we brought you on is because today we're doing two episodes, one of which has not aged well at all.
No, God.
God help us.
So we're doing season 1 still, episodes 10 and 12. We're skipping 11. That's a Christmas episode, so we're going to save that for something else.
Circling back on that.
Yeah. Episode 10, Ellie for Council, directed by Bob Sweeney and written by Jack Ellison and Charles Stewart. And Episode 12, Stranger in Town, directed by Don Weiss. And we have to...
Don Weiss comes back for the weird ones every time.
Well, we have to say goodbye to Don Weiss. I looked it up. This is his last episode.
He goes out swinging.
He really just charges forward on this. And by the way, get used to hearing the name Bob Sweeney, because he dominates the next couple of seasons, the next season and a half.
It's the most old-timey writer name ever.
It sounds like the name of a farmer that is trying to sabotage other farmers' plans to grow the biggest pumpkin.
He sounds like an industrialist you curse the name of. God damn you, Sweeney! I'll crush you in business!
Bob Sweeney is the name of a Scooby-Doo villain.
Yeah.
Oh. And I would have gotten away with it too if it wasn't for you damn kids.
Yeah. Let's get into this. Episode 10, Ellie for Council, directed by Bob Sweeney.
Bob Sweeney.
Aired December 12th, 1960. Just always like to give our timeline here. And my reference point is we just elected JFK.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
yeah.
Good point.
See, I was looking for a reference point. I was like, have there been any milestones in women's voting rights around this time period?
Yeah.
The Wikipedia page cuts off well before anything close to this.
Well, that's I looked up the history of women running for office.
Right.
And I think that the timeline on this is very interesting because this is 1960, so a good 40 years after women's suffrage, after the 19th Amendment. And Ellie is well under 40 years old.
Right.
So she's never known a time when women couldn't vote. Mm-hmm. And I think that for everybody who is watching the TV at this point, they're also, the younger people are also aware of this. So there's a fun little, generation gap, I think, that gets played with here.
Mm-hmm.
Well, also, women running for office was not anything new at this point. The show kind of treats it as as this revolutionary thing. Decades women had been successfully running for office.
There were people in Congress or the Senate, I can't remember which, that had been elected that didn't even have the right to vote, and they were elected.
Yeah.
It was always a senator's wife who died, or the senator died and the wife took over.
I'm pretty sure there was one that was actually elected. I can't remember who it is right now, and I probably should have researched that before coming, but fun scavenger hunt for our listeners. Go find out who it was.
I looked it up. I found a good timeline of that stuff. But we've already had a couple of female mayors in large cities. The first one was Iowa City, Iowa.
Yeah.
The second was Seattle. We've had women, black women, Native women serving in state legislatures at this point.
Wow.
So you're right. They treat it like it's something new, but it's new for Mayberry.
Right.
Yeah.
And to be fair, they
make it a north-south thing, I think. Because they basically say, Ellie comes in and says, women are getting elected to office all over the country. And, Andy says something to the effect of, well, this is the South.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, okay, we're getting ahead of ourselves.
Yep.
So, let's do the one-sentence Wikipedia description. Ellie starts a battle of the sexes when she decides to run for town council. Which, you could probably guess from our previous conversation from context clues. Alright, so our episode opens up with...
a picnic.
It's a picnic, and Andy
a picnic that made me kind of uncomfortable.
Why?
It was. I don't know, just...
It's very, like, Natalie Wood, Splendor in the Grass kind of feel to it, especially with Eleanor Donahue.
Yeah, a little bit. I think just, like, the level of, like, romance that the show has, like, cultivated throughout, like, the most romantic activity so far has been, like, a kiss on the cheek or, like vague eyebrows raised, and suddenly they're at a picnic, and based off of, like, the precedent this show is set... That was it immediately felt like almost pornographic. I was like, whoa, they're sitting on a picnic together? She's wearing a dress?
No, it does, like, there is, like, this weird, like, sexual tension that's, like, wrapped up in innocence around, Andy and Ellie.
And Barney and whoever the hell Barney is there with.
Barney and his, like, latest conquest.
I can't believe Barney is a ladies' man on this show.
Barney gets more ass than all of us.
But, yeah.
It pisses me off, though, because, like, they went through that whole fucking thing where a man went to jail so that Barney could get with Miss Rosemary.
And then Barney immediately trades up.
Yeah, like, drops her ass immediately.
We thought that they were recasting Barney's love interest with just hotter and hotter actresses, and no, Barney keeps dumping women. Barney is a lady killer, inexplicably. A chinless lady killer.
Alright, so
the chinless lady killer of Mayberry.
Yeah.
Alright, so it opens up, where they're all at a picnic. If not for the fact that there's a small child there, I would have been like, this is a swingers group.
Yeah.
But everyone's just...
And Aunt B.
Yeah. And everyone's just, like, amazed at the amount that Opie is eating. That's the opening gag. Andy's doing his thing. Does he have his guitar out?
Yeah, no, he's playing his guitar.
He always, just to show off.
It felt very, like, college dorm. Like,
yeah.
And they do a little bit of banter. Don Knotts and
Hattie Mae.
Hattie Mae
is his girlfriend's name, and I don't think she has any lines in this movie.
Yeah, I don't think she said anything.
She didn't say anything. We're told that she said something to him later, but like no words actually come out of that woman's mouth.
Yeah,
it's like the low talker from Seinfeld.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, they fuck off. I think Aunt B and Opie also fuck off.
Yeah, so now it's just. I mean, it's very clear that they want to leave Andy and Ellie, alone together.
Yeah.
And they're getting cozy when Andy takes a nap. He's gonna lay down and he puts the newspaper over his head.
That's how it goes.
Yeah.
And Ellie immediately latches on to an article in the paper. Good fucking eyesight on her to see
she reads very quickly.
Yeah, to both read the fine print of a newspaper from a couple feet away, and then immediately have some feelings on it.
An opinion, yeah.
Yeah. And she begins mulling over the fact that there's no women running for city council. Andy says, well, of course not. One of them could win. Ellie is immediately offended.
Yep. Andy
says, oh, that just slipped out. Let me put that sentence back in there. Ooh, that doesn't taste too good. He's scumbag.
He's really, he's charming his way out of saying something stupid.
Yeah.
Which is a thing that, we've all done. I have done. I don't know about you, Dan. You have no charm.
Nope. Accurate.
He almost gets away with it. She's willing to let this shit go.
I did not find that charming at all. No. That was so skeevy.
He's willing to let that, she's willing to let that shit go, but then he keeps pressing it.
Yeah.
You had an ace in the hole there, bud, and then you ruined it.
Or something along the lines that he keeps saying that it's silly, the notion...
he needs her to say that it's silly.
He needs that validation.
Yeah.
You're cool, right? Because you feel the same way, right? And it's no.
Yeah.
He needs her to submit to it being silly.
And the thing that makes it worse, Andy gets advice from a wife beater in a jail cell.
Okay. We're not there yet.
What? No, yeah. Listen, we're gonna talk to Otis, but talking about Otis needs to go in the designated talking about Otis box. Because otherwise that will be everything.
Yeah, okay, good to know.
We're not there yet.
Hold on to it.
Because I want to say, Ellie has a really weird line where she's just like, oh, yeah, I guess I didn't really want to run for council. I was just trying to defend my sex. Ellie's motivation throughout this entire episode is
wishy-washy.
Really wishy-washy and odd. It's very clearly written by two men.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank
you.
So the reason for her to stomp off doesn't make a whole lot of sense because she backs down And then she just runs up hot again.
Well, he says another stupid thing.
He says the word silly again.
Yeah.
He keeps calling her silly, or the idea of a woman on council silly. So then she, like, storms off. And I want to say, by the way, this is, like, very well shot. Congrats to Don Weiss. Like, this whole scene looks really good.
Yeah.
And she, like, storms off. Then we cut to Andy.
We're now entering Otis zone.
Yes.
Andy in the jailhouse.
As long as he is in the jail cell, we can talk about Otis. Otis has to be on screen for us to talk about him.
Okay.
Because the screaming will never stop.
This is, by the way, according to the ultra-reliable Mayberry Wiki.
God, I need to become a contributor on that.
Yeah. This is the only time we see Otis in jail not for drinking. This is the only time that he's in jail for something other than drinking. And what he's in for is domestic violence.
Yeah.
They use domestic abuse as a punchline like 4 times.
Yeah, no, they make it a reoccurring bit.
Like, this is okay.
It's like Otis's Baba Booey is hit her in the mouth with a leg of lamb. Alright, so Otis is introduced in episode 2, and he's like he's this silly little drunk. He's the town drunk who also is late for choir practice. And it's like, ooh, look at this delightful character.
Like, even though he's got his issues, he's still lovable.
Yeah. And it's like
a W.C. Fields kind of thing. Like,
yeah. And then he comes into the episode and they're like, all right, we're ready to introduce Otis as a full-time character. What do you got to say, Otis? Beat your wife.
Like, you gotta put him in their place.
You gotta hate your wife. That's me. Well, that's Otis. That's my opinion.
There's context to this, though, because I was talking about that I was going to be part of this episode with my coworkers, and somebody came in. I couldn't help but overhear that, he beat his wife with a leg of lamb. Mm-hmm. Did you hear about the Alfred Hitchcock Presents episode that had a storyline around that? There was an episode of Alfred Hitchcock, I think it's Alfred Hitchcock Presents. It was like the alternative to the Twilight Zone, where a woman
It was
murders,
a really shitty version of the Twilight Zone.
Yeah, a woman murders her husband with a leg of lamb, and then serves the leg of lamb to the 2 police officers who are called in to investigate it, so they eat the murder weapon.
Holy shit! I heard that. I think my dad told that as like a bedtime story when I was a kid or some shit.
So remember,
what the fuck is going on in your house?
If a wife brings up leg of lamb, it's all downhill
I've
from
heard
there.
that story before.
Well, yeah, so when I mentioned that, she's like, oh yeah, well, have you heard about that episode? And I'm like, it still doesn't make it okay, but I'm wondering, did somebody who wrote for that show introduce it into this episode and is trying to make punchline on multiple levels?
That could be
interesting.
Yeah. That definitely doesn't redeem it.
Yeah.
But it is an interest.
But maybe they're making, it's like with The Simpsons nowadays makes a lot of jokes that are referential jokes. Like if you didn't see the pop culture source that inspired it, it falls flat.
Because it's been sliding to Family Guy territory for like a decade and a half.
Right.
Yeah.
But the point is, maybe this was the Andy Griffith Show's way of making a pop culture reference and trying to kick it up another notch. Like, oh, Leg of Lamb, I guess you didn't succeed in killing him.
I mean,
it's a possible theory,
but it's still making domestic violence a punchline.
Because
we've seen them make like oblique pop culture reference before. Like
we should first say what the actual bit was.
Sure. Let's do this. Yeah, once again we're getting ahead of ourselves.
Yeah.
So it opens up. There is this really funny thing I see because we see Andy at the typewriter, kind of hunting and pecking. Because he's trying to write an apology letter to Eleanor. Otis is in his cell, and there's a good visual gag here I love, where, like, the cell is made up like an apartment. He's, like, in a rocking chair reading the newspaper. There's, like, a tasteful lamp and stuff. Like, it's kind of like...
It's an apartment.
Yeah, with bars on the front.
Yeah.
It's really funny, and it's just, like, he's there enough that they've just, like, made his room up for him. And I really like that bit there. I wish it weren't attached to a domestic violence arrest.
Right.
I wish it was just... like his public intoxication shit. Andy goes to Otis for advice on the apology letter that he wrote to Eleanor. I don't even remember, was it a good apology or was it one of those like, I'm sorry you were offended kind of shit?
It was kind of, he apologized, he just basically said, I'm sorry I said something stupid. Like, it was something along those lines. Like, he doesn't really apologize for the underlying thing, but he just says like, I'm
sorry that this put a rift in our relationship.
Yeah, I
you know what? It's better than nothing.
Yeah.
Like, we've definitely seen worse apologies.
Oh, yeah.
And Otis is just kind of like, oh, no. Oh, no.
Yeah.
No, Andy.
This will not do at all.
You can never apologize to a woman. You gotta put her in her place. And Andy's just like, yeah, but you're here because like, you got into a fight with your wife.
Not a fight, like, he beat his wife up. It's not a
Well,
fight.
He swung at... Oh, so the joke is, he swung at his wife with a leg of lamb, and Otis says, well, I missed, didn't I? Yeah, but you hit her mother! And then Otis, like, with his hands around jail cell bars, like, face pressed up, beady eyes, like, going out of a fat face, just goes, oh, yeah. Like,
he's really taking joy in how much he hit his woman's mouth.
Devious cackle. Like,
and it was apparently a large hit because a little bit later, Barney comes into the office and says, "Oh, Otis, I saw your mother-in-law coming out of the dentist."
Yeah,
like, apparently knocked some fillings loose. Like,
which it's a leg of lamb that he must have hit her
Or
hard.
it was frozen, like the story in the
Oh, shit.
If it was frozen, that's like a baseball bat.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Yeah. So the more you think about it, I mean, at the time, domestic violence was known as a family issue. Like, oh, they're just having family issues, they'll work it out. It wasn't really looked upon as a police matter. And
that is the explicit moral of a later episode of couple, like a husband and wife fighting. They're just working things out.
Yes.
Yeah.
There were code words. Like, there was no name for it at that point. The name domestic violence didn't come around, I think, until like the late 60s, early 70s, maybe even later than that. Mm. But yeah, it was it's a family problem. They have to get their own house in order.
Yeah.
And you don't want to break the family up, so you're kind of stuck with it. You take one for the team.
Yeah, I mean, in that context, it's sort of treated as like some tomfoolery. Like it's not treated as like he did this super fucked up thing. And even like he's constantly advocating throughout the entire episode for like they use the term leg of lamb repeatedly, and they're like he's like providing a dissenting opinion of like every decent behavior. He's like, listen, just hit her with a leg of lamb, and this will all sort itself out. And later, like Andy is like, that leg of lamb is sounding pretty appealing right now. Like,
yeah, like Otis is like his shoulder devil for this entire thing. Yeah. Once again, we had this conversation a couple episodes ago where like the show tries to be equitable about blame and then goes way, way hard on one direction. Because it mentions that, like, Otis's wife did throw something at him. Yeah. That is said once, and then the leg of lamb was in retaliation. And I'm saying this not to excuse anything about Otis, but I'm saying this because fuck off, I don't want any, like, MRAs, like, writing into our show, like, she was here too! No, fuck off.
I want to say that MRAs don't have enough time to hassle us. They fucking do.
Yeah. So, Otis says, can't apologize to a woman, you gotta put her in her place.
And Andy says, you can't hit women.
And so it does. Otis is the bad guy of this episode, but he's treated as like an acceptable bad guy. Like he's the person in the wrong, but like characters are like, now Otis, that's not fair. They're not like, shut up, you monster.
Yeah, he's just your stupid cousin.
Yeah. Shut up, you nightmare pile of garbage. Like, he transforms from like he eventually transforms back into the lovable town drunk. For this episode, he is the fucking Shadow King from Legion. Like, he is just this fat pile of pure evil just stewing in the corner.
Barney comes in, he says the line about seeing Otis's mother-in-law at the dentist. Mm-hmm. And then he, like, brings out the news that is the plot of this episode, which we're finally getting to.
Yes.
This is going to be a long one.
Where he reveals that Ellie is running for town council. Ellie has taken it upon herself. And is out gathering signatures right now to get on the ballot.
And Barney signed it.
I
love you for that, Barney.
Not only did Barney sign it, he was the first name on the ballot.
Right. he explicitly did for, like, basically, like, sexual reasons.
Oh, yeah, he's like, oh, I'll sign it.
Yeah, Hattie Mae, like, called him some pet names. And
he does it because his girlfriend called him Cream Puff, which is, like...
It's weird, but alright, sure, whatever.
It's not even a very, like, complimentary, romantic phrase, like...
Yeah, if someone calls you a cream puff, they're not saying it in
You're not
nicety.
strong.
Yeah,
you're easy to be, you can be pushed over like a cream puff.
Like, there's a lot of other terms. It's basically, like, the only term for, like, a thing that is sweet that would hurt my feelings, like...
So what happens next, right?
A woman running for council? That's awful. We can't have that. It's just bad having a woman running. Like, I took down some of the quotes that...
That's Andy talking.
Well, no, this is,
the two
gentlemen who come in, they're just like, did you hear the news?
The guy with the mustache whose head is the shape of a thumb.
Yeah,
That's the guy.
Two other men come in, and they're, like, ranting and raving, and they're pissed off at Barty for signing the signature.
Yeah.
And they're
so is Andy, and I'm just like, where's your loyalty to your friend and your woman in this situation, dude?
He has zero. Andy's a shitty boyfriend. This is what we've learned throughout this entire period. These two men are ranting and raving, and they say, Andy, you gotta do something about this. They're basically doing the same thing as Otis, saying, put your woman in her place, but leaving out the bit about the leg of lamb.
Yeah.
So Andy goes to the malt shop, pharmacy, where Ellie works, to go make things up, like, try to patch things up.
And then put her in her place.
And then put her in her place.
Well, he addresses the idea of her running for city council. Is like, I heard the silliest rumor. I can't use the word silly enough here. That you were running for city council.
A silly council.
It was like the silly, extremely silly, completely implausible rumor that you're running for city council. I'm screaming at you with my eyes. I know you are in fact doing this. Change your mind and pretend like you're not.
Once again, though, he is forgiven. Once again, he pulls himself out of trouble and then puts himself right back into it.
Yeah. What he's doing is kind of a form of gaslighting. Like, I have in my notes here, like, Ellie, what the hell are you apologizing for, girl? Because by the end of it, she's like, you know, maybe this isn't something I should be doing. I'm so sorry that I put us through this. And gaslighting is the idea that your partner is basically turning your reasonable requests, like if you're out late, you're not responding to my texts, I've got the sense that you're seeing someone else. You just need to relax, or you just need to not have that idea.
Yeah.
And then the other person saying, well, gosh, I was out of line for being myself and asserting myself. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, like he's waging his own form of abuse against her. Of constantly undermining and questioning her without the overt conflict.
He doesn't. Yeah, it's this weird thing, and it's actually probably a good episode to show when you can talk about the idea that maybe abuse isn't just physical, because he does not hit her with the leg of lamb, although he does consider it.
Yeah,
that's the punchline of this scene. He's like, I should have brought a leg of lamb.
He explicitly says the only Otis was right. The only thing they understand is a leg of lamb.
Well, and then we all laugh, and it fades to black, and cut to a commercial for cigarettes or something.
Yeah.
Whoa. Well, and The Honeymooners was out. Gosh.
Let's say Honeymooners is a contemporary.
Oh shit! Was this the same period?
Yeah, I mean maybe
Honeymooners was like the 40s, 50s.
No, Honeymooners probably went off the air just a year or two before.
Okay, because that was a running gag too. Like, one of these days, and there was even a motion of raising a fist, saying like, one of these days I'm going to beat the shit out of you. You're going to push me too far.
I mean, that was not a running gag. That was their dynamite. That was the catchphrase. Yeah.
You're really rocking the catchphrases this episode. I appreciate it.
Yeah. But yeah, so he does the half apology. He tries to emotionally manipulate Ellie into dropping out of the race. Mm-hmm. She refuses. So the plan is put in place.
Oh god.
Which
the plan.
So this I've actually looked into because I've been trying to figure out. I've talked to lawyers about this again. They're also kind of unsure about whether or not the events that follow are explicitly illegal. Because, alright, so the plan that is cooked up, he gets all the men together, and he says, what we're going to do is, if all the women vote for Ellie, she's going to win. So what we have to do is we have to stop all the women from voting. How are we going to do this? You're going to cut off all your wives' access to your bank accounts.
And credit cards.
Line of credit,
because they didn't really have credit cards back then.
So basically doing financial coercion
Abuse.
To stop all the women in town from voting. Now this is orchestrated by the sheriff and the justice of the peace.
Yep.
So, same person.
Yeah, basically the most powerful member of local government. Because the
mayor's useless.
He's an absentee. So the most powerful member of the government in the town organizes mass financial collusion. Now, whether or not the actual act of withholding money from your wife to keep her from voting is...
It's not illegal, but it is very questionable.
Yeah.
You're restricting their access and their agency to be able to buy groceries, to be able to buy clothing if they need it. God forbid if they have to go to the emergency room, you're preventing them from being able to have access to things that would allow them to do that.
Yeah, but it's since it's access to joint funds, it might...
That's where it gets murky, and that's why financial abuse can be notoriously difficult to prove, because if everything is in your spouse's name... and it's like, we can't prove that this person was not giving you access because it's in his name.
Yeah.
And, not always man doing the abuse, but, it's in there.
And in fact, it probably wasn't joint, right? It was probably very unlikely that these women had their names on the account.
And they're not working, so there's no other way. Except for there were some shop owners that were female, but it looks like a majority of these customers were women that were homemakers.
Yeah.
So they had no other means of income.
And they do this. They do a montage through this.
The montage is great.
There are two very funny montages about this. And they do something here that, I wish television shows still did, where the entire thing is silent and they pretty much let the score, they let the score do all the heavy lifting on all the jokes. They do the, trombone, and
I wish that convention still happened.
It's a really good...
If Brooklyn Nine-Nine did a trombone narration of a montage, I would be on board.
Yeah. Those montages are very, very fun to watch. And if nothing else, I think you should just watch this episode for them.
Yeah.
But, alright, so in regards to this conspiracy, it's kind of interesting because Andy has done a lot of illegal stuff on this show, but it's always, kind of a gray area. They do a really good job of making it kind of, iffy. Oh, maybe this is a misdemeanor, maybe this is, an actual crime. There is no in-between, because it is either not at all a crime and just massively unethical, or B, it is a massive crime, the kind that there are hearings for on TV, and a lot of people go to jail for.
Yes.
It's either not at all a crime, or the biggest crime on the show. He might have done criminal conspiracy for voter suppression.
Well, and the other layer here is, Ellie had said, not only am I going to run, I'm going to encourage other women to run too. So not only are we talking voter suppression, we are talking about restricting people's access to mount a campaign.
Yeah. I have described, to a couple people the thing that Andy does on the show, and they're like, alright, well, is the woman, wildly, corrupt, or is there, what does she do to justify this? Right. And I've been like, no, nothing. He likes her. She's the love interest. And they're like, what? People don't process the events of this show.
I will say there's one thing this show, or this episode wastes a lot of time, literally just having one line of Ellie be like, if I were city council, I will fix the schoolhouse or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
They don't even give her a chance.
Yeah, there's no... I don't know what policies Ellie stands for. You could illustrate that. Maybe if there was something, I use fix the schoolhouse as a pretty sexist example, but if there was just one thing that Ellie notices needs to be fixed that none of the men notice.
More jobs for women.
Yeah, just something like that. Give her one line where she's like, I want to be in city council so I can blank.
Right.
As opposed to what the motivation really seems like, which is I want to be in city council so I can show that women can be in city council, and also because I'm mad at my boyfriend. It really does a disservice to Ellie.
Although, part of the reason I want to run for office later stems from how angry I was at the 2016 election. We had the most qualified presidential candidate ever, and it still wasn't enough, and she was still taken down in many instances because of who she was, and I'm just like, that's messed up, and I'm thinking about doing this now.
And that's true of a lot of women.
Obviously, there is more to me than that. But that was a very strong. I'm just like, oh fuck no.
But there's a record number. As we're recording this in 2018, there's a record number of women running for office. Majority Democrat women, and as a result, so this episode both aged poorly and also is very timely.
Just immediately got super relevant again. Yeah.
The voter suppression plan kind of backfires because the women get together and they're like, all right, well...
Wait. Before we go on, can we just talk about how wonderful it is that a woman is in her fucking slip? And Lady's like, well, I can't let you buy this dress because your credit's been cut off. And she's like, I'll show him. And she puts her out and she runs out of the...
I didn't even catch that bit.
God, I was just like, that girlfriend is running out in her slip. This is serious. That's like a woman going out when her hair is half did, or like she's had like one pedicure done.
She's so mad.
You can.
I died when I was just like, oh my god.
She's like taking off the earrings, like, oh no.
At one point, you can read what when one of the wives is like denied, like the shoes that she had purchased. You can like read her lips.
I forgot about that.
And she's like, well, I never. Like she actually
and she
mouths.
stumbles out with one shoe off and one shoe on. That was adorable.
So the women get together, and they're like, well, guess what? There's some shit we can withhold, too. And it pretty much, like, does not say that they're doing, like, a Lysistrata style sex strike.
Yes,
but it's
like, you know that's a component. You know no one's getting any.
Yeah. But it's, like, heavily implied. But instead, it's way more sexist than that. It's like, well, guess what? We're not cooking. We're not ironing. We're not cleaning shit.
Not mending your socks.
We're not do it your own damn self. And in a way, this actually just makes, like, the men look more and more incompetent.
Yeah.
And Andy, of course, is also suffering from this because his homemaker at home, his Aunt B, is also on, like, this workers' strike. And by this point, we've kind of lost the entire plot about electing a woman in general, and it's just, like...
It's just vague, it's sort of doing, like, a kind of almost... Like for the time forward thinking gender, like women are just as important as men within the specific preset patriarchal gender roles.
It's a very like separate but equal kind of thing.
Yeah.
So we open up to breakfast where Andy is attempting to cook his own eggs, which are now like black. They look like fucking beans. Like I thought he was putting
that's not eggs.
It was clearly not eggs. And he puts them onto Opie's plate, and Opie makes jokes like,
"Oh fuck no!
Oh, is this like the well done carrots we had yesterday?" Like, apparently, Andy's just screwing everything up. And by
the best is Opie at one point is like, "I'm gonna keep eating Dad's food, even though it hurts so bad." Like you're poisoning your child.
I mean, honestly, at this point though, like you're a grown man, Andy. It's humiliating that he is a grown man who does not know how to cook eggs.
Yeah.
That's basic. Like when you were in the academy, you should have known how to do that.
He was in the military. He was in the army.
Man.
Oh, they use rations though. That's like you just add water to that.
He ate out of a tin.
You still need some survival skills though. Shit.
Yeah. He should be able to cook eggs.
And I love that Aunt B's like, Opie, are you sure you don't want some nice stew?
Yeah.
And that's when he says, like, no, I'm gonna keep eating this food.
I really like that Aunt B has evolved into, like, she is the regulator of Andy. Like, it is her basic job to just show up once an episode and be like, fuck you! Fuck your entire deal! Like, what you're doing this episode is bullshit.
She's like BD, like whenever BD Wong would appear on Special Victims Unit, like, we think we know what we're talking about. Oh no, you don't. I've got the full shit right here. And then he leaves, and that's it.
It's like she gets a designated 2 minutes every episode where she, like, fights her way onto the set before, like, security drags her away, and she's like, I have some opinions about this!
That's great.
Yeah.
Sold.
Alright, it's a good thing we're talking about Opie's, like, blind loyalty to his father, because that's what comes into play here. Ellie enters the kitchen to reveal that she has decided to withdraw from the race because she didn't mean to start a big war between the sexes in Mayberry, even though she very clearly, like, arranged all the women together, and she was their general.
She arranged an insurgency.
Started a movement.
Yeah.
So then, like, that's what we said, like, her motivations are super wishy-washy on this one.
Well, and the other thing is, she decides to quit, but it's like she's asking him for permission to quit.
Go on.
Well, just the way she came in, like, I just wanted to do something different, but since you have such a problem with it, I'll do it. It really, it doesn't sound like asserting, like, I'm doing this because I'm concerned that people will get hurt, but I'm doing this to make you happy. And that's the other sign of an unhealthy relationship.
Yeah.
If your identity is starting to be absorbed by the identity of your significant other, and now you only exist to do whatever they want and make sure that their needs are being met while sacrificing your own, not an abusive relationship, but very well could be on the way to becoming one.
I mean, Andy does have a long history throughout the show of psychological manipulation. But to put it your way, I never thought to use the term gaslighting. He gaslights people frequently, often as his way of solving a problem.
But this is my solution, and you're gonna come around to my way of thinking.
Yeah.
It's like,
Holy,
but it blows up in his face right now. Put them in his face. Because Andy's just like, okay, well, that sounds fine. And then Opie's just like, does that mean we won?
We put the women in their place,
We beat those ugly women, yeah. And I'm gonna say beat like has multiple meanings when it's said,
yeah.
And they're like, ha, we made those girls. And that's when Ellie again turns her opinions on a dime.
Yeah.
And just like, well, look at that. Look what you just did.
Yeah.
But fun. She storms out again.
She's got a lot of storming going on.
There's a lot of storming. And then Aunt B just like, again, goes, fuck off. Look what you did, dipshit.
Yeah, your son you're turning your son into a bigoted monster. Yeah, no, it almost, he didn't say it, but it felt like Opie had just said some Reddit forum red pill bullshit. Just like Ellie had walked in and be like, yeah, all women are whores.
Yeah,
redistribute sex.
I deserve sex.
Yeah.
So now we get to the climax of the episode. Yeah.
Which also, we get to the climax of the episode because Andy ignores the fact that his child is spouting sexist. He's like, I have to go deal with this. Excuse me, child who just said sexist stuff. I'm gonna go talk to a crowd. I have a problem right
here, but I'm gonna go solve this problem instead.
We're gonna circle back.
Opie has zero attention span. It's like rubbing a dog's nose in their business. You have to do it immediately afterwards, otherwise they won't know why they're in trouble.
Right. The sexism is settling into the folds of his brain. Right?
You can't go back to later and talk to Opie about this stuff. We've seen how that works.
Yeah.
Well, actually, he's probably doing more good than harm just because he's so bad at debating his child.
He sucks at talking to his son.
Honestly, if he tried to debate with Opie, he probably would have made it worse.
Absolutely. So we get to the episode where the climax of the episode where all of the town is meeting in town square. And
the women are doing we want Ellie for council. They're holding signs that are very bad. The set department went home at 5 because they're just like, Ellie good! City council Ellie! We want Ellie! It's just Ellie and then
don't strain yourselves on this one.
Well, again, Ellie has no platform to speak of.
Yeah.
And also, none of the other candidates show up. We're just told that there are men, ethereally out there who are also running for council.
Yeah.
And none of them appear. We don't know who these men are. But it's irrelevant, I guess.
Right.
So now, things have they're colliding in the streets. It's like the beginning of Gangs of New York. They're just having this big old clash, between the, pro and anti-Ellie, factions of town.
There is about to be a riot.
Yeah. And I don't even know.
And that lady with her slip shows up, it's on.
Oh yeah.
Taking her earrings off. Okay.
And I don't even know if the timeline makes no sense. This isn't the election. It's just a war in the streets.
You're losing your shit over the preliminary stuff.
Yeah,
Andy got so lucky that he just happened to stumble upon the riot.
Exactly.
What's going on here, guys?
Fucking nailed it.
Oh, good. I thought I might find a riot here.
Dude, oh God.
Okay, so Andy takes the stage, essentially, hold everything, which is a thing he does in the next episode, too. Both these episodes involve, Andy talking down to the entire town.
Yeah.
You got it all wrong, friends.
Yeah, exactly. And he, stands up in front of everybody, in front of the, Justice Building, and he gives, the line in this entire episode did not age well, but he delivers a line that aged the worst. Where he's like, now I just heard my son Opie say something against women. And if he doesn't like women, well, when he gets older and he wants to get married, that kind of limits his options now, doesn't it?
Which was almost, they treated it as, I thought, when he started to do that, I thought they were going to make a gay joke, and then they just treated it as, not even an option.
It didn't even occur to them. It didn't even occur to them. So ignoring how it just ignores the entire, other option there. It's also basically just Opie can't hate women, because then otherwise how will he get married?
Yeah, no, you can't.
Lots of men who hate women get married
all
the time.
Otis is married, apparently, so,
Oh, God.
So Otis and Barney get more ass than all of us.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
Which Otis is also in this scene clapping at one point.
That's right.
And a bottle falls from him.
Oh, yes. I forgot about that.
Wacky Otis, who is there with the wife
right
he
now.
swung at, and the wife is just kind of a bottle falls from his recent abuse victim wife, and she's just like, come on. Her look is
Here we go again.
yeah, the look I would give you if you just really farted while we were in a movie theater.
Come on, man.
Yeah, just
I know you're supposed to expect this of you, but really?
Yeah. So Andy's whole speech is basically just well, now we don't want Ellie to run for council because she's a woman.
Mm-hmm.
But if you think about it, there's no other reason for that.
Uh-huh.
You have it written down? Yeah.
I hate to admit it, but if Ellie wants to run for council, I reckon she's got a right to.
And one of
he hates to admit that a person in his town has a right to do
run
a
for
thing.
office.
Has
Yeah.
rights. The sheriff of town just God dang those rights.
Which
those civil rights.
He says he does have one good point in favor, which is a good moment of clarity where it's we don't want her to run because she's a woman. Do we have any other reasons why she shouldn't run? And she's and it's no. So he does have
so
one.
I think that's when this line comes in. She's got a right to.
One thing, the entire time he's delivering this speech about how sexism is bad, I wanted to, Purple Rose of Cairo my way into the movie and just be also voting is important and you shouldn't fuck with that. Right, Andy? Right? You should let people vote. You are an elected official.
Well, and that's the biggest irony about all this by punishing the women earlier. Boyfriends, you are alienating a very significant portion of your constituents.
Why didn't they just campaign for women harder?
Yeah, that's my thing. Is if you are really that worried about a woman running for office, beef up your platform. Cater to your constituents.
That actually that happened after women gained the ability to vote. Mm-hmm. What immediately happened was candidates started campaigning on issues that were seen as more attractive to women.
Sympathetic to their...
One of which, kind of tying into Otis, prohibition. Yeah, because, the idea was, if you ban alcohol, husbands will hit their wives less. So that became a major platform after the women's suffrage. Was it the 19th Amendment?
Yeah, right. No. Yeah, the 19th Amendment, because prohibition's the 20th.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
So it kind of
drugs.
Yeah, again, Otis is this living animus of just everything anti-women.
I will say we talked about it slightly earlier. So I mentioned that we already had women serving in state senates and a female mayor in Seattle. And to be fair, why the hell would anyone in Mayberry know who the mayor of Seattle was 10 years ago?
Right.
But Aunt B even says, it's so exciting. We've got a woman running for council. It looks like we're catching up to the rest of the world.
Yeah.
So, they pretty much make the point that, this is new to Mayberry, but it's not new to lots of other places.
Good point.
Which is, one of the things that we've always been very confused about, the setting of Mayberry. How it is technically 1960, but feels like 1935 all the time.
Yeah.
And it gets called out in this episode.
It's a town stuck in the past.
Yeah. And so, we don't know. So, everyone kind of cheers for the right to vote, I guess.
No, not for the right to
cheer
vote.
For elections.
We're cheering for not, for deciding to not enforce sexism. They're cheering yeah, we'll let you have this one. We're allowing this.
We're all on board now.
They're not we shouldn't have done any of this, but we're changing our minds.
Where was the woman that was saying, think about the children, after he found out that Opie's little mind has been warped by all this?
Again, just the sexism is just settling into Opie this entire scene.
Yeah, I'm not sure how Andy's gonna go back and explain his logic there later on. So the last scene is everybody hanging out on Andy's front porch. Mm-hmm. Once again, it opens pretty much the same way, or close to the same way it opened. He's sitting there, he's playing his guitar. I don't know if we've had the election. I don't know if Ellie won or not. He says in the song that she won, but, like, he might just be being facetious, because, like, he also
No,
refers
she
to...
wins. She's on... Like,
Well,
actually...
because in the next episode, or in a couple of episodes, there's, like, a city council meeting and she's not there.
No,
but
no.
then a few later episodes, she's there and she has voting rights.
Yeah,
so
she has voting rights, but also Don Knotts does.
Yeah.
So it's kind of confusing.
I don't understand the Mayberry city government, but it's fine.
Mayberry.
I don't think Mayberry understands the Mayberry city government. I think it's just whoever is in the room gets to vote.
Then why are you even having this issue?
But I think Andy basically learns the true moral of the story. It's not women can do whatever. It's not voting. It's basically Andy starts to say another stupid thing, and Ellie starts to get offended, and he just goes, I'm gonna shut up. Regardless of how I feel about this interaction we're having, I'm just going to stop talking. And I think it's actually, like, a solid thing of just, like, when you say a thing and someone starts to get pissed off about what you're saying, you can just shut up at any time.
You can back down.
Yeah,
it's okay.
like,
It's okay.
that lesson should be disseminated across the internet of, like, maybe keep your opinion to yourself when it's stupid.
Yeah. Can we get that on a t-shirt? Keep
Yeah.
your opinion to yourself when it's stupid.
Yeah.
That's genius.
And that's episode 10, Ellie for Council.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On to the weird one.
I'm Clint.
And I'm Jared.
And we're the hosts of the podcast Alcohollywood,
Your source for inebriation.
which you're not listening to right now because this is just a promo for a weekly podcast on all kinds of movies. New, old, good, bad.
Yeah, especially bad.
Plus, we invent a cocktail and a drinking game inspired by each film.
And sometimes we make jokes. Not this time, but sometimes.
Subscribe to us on your favorite podcatcher and check out the whole shebang at alcohollywood.com.
All right, so we're moving on to episode 12, Stranger in Town.
Yeah.
Our goodbye to the great Don Weiss.
Who goes out, I think, chasing his dream of doing a Twilight Zone episode.
Yes.
Yeah. So Don Weiss and Arthur Stander. We like Arthur Stander. He's one of the better writers on this show.
Is he the one that gets horny the end? Oh.
No, that's David.
What?
David Adler is the horny one.
Okay, yeah.
Arthur Stander wrote Stranger in Town. We're coming to the end of 1960, December 26, 1960. This airs, and here is the one-sentence Wikipedia summary: the citizens of Mayberry are suspicious of a young stranger, William Lanthow, is the actor's name, and I looked it up. He hasn't been in anything like. Notable.
He does not look like he's been in anything.
Yeah.
The citizens of Mayberry are suspicious of a young stranger who seems to know everything about them. First appearance of Floyd the Barber, played for the only time by Walter Baldwin. So we open in the barber's office. Floyd the Barber is going to be like a regular character on the show, but this is the first time he's played by this actor.
Oh, okay.
They switch actors later.
Okay.
That
was a fun exchange.
So it opens with Barney getting a haircut
And not liking it.
and Floyd is narrating what he would do if he was president, which again feels weirdly timely.
Yeah, sure.
Of just like some schmuck narrating their presidential actions, and he talks about how he would move his presidential office out of the White House because you can't run an office out of the place you live, and then specifically uses the example of talking to a prime minister, and his wife comes in to ask him what he wants for dinner. Solid little
The
bit.
cynicism is strong.
The
With
cynicism is good, but it's a solid bit.
Yeah.
You know, it just made me think of like LBJ and his deal of just like talking to diplomats while he was taking a dump.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Yeah. And,
Or that time he called the pants company when he recorded it.
because
Kind of let the crotch out a little bit, like burps into the...
he's basically Rick Sanchez.
Yeah.
Yes! Oh my God!
Anyway,
I mean, the multiple occasions of him whipping his dick out in meetings.
This is how I got to be president, son.
LBJ was so crass.
He called his dick the Big Shrimp.
What?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the name. I don't know if it's because of the shape.
Moving on. Moving on.
So
Dip it in cocktail sauce?
he's narrating his everyman presidency, and while he's doing so, Barney's becoming agitated about his haircut, and he's like, "Did you fuck up my sideburns? It feels like my sideburns are different shapes." And two of the guys say, like, again, nice little bit of, the left one is too long, no, the right one is too short. And then Andy comes in and says, "What sideburns? They're completely gone." And Barney proceeds to just spend the remainder of the scene, like, either A, monologuing, or B, quick, like, joke sniping about what a shady barber Floyd is. Which, for this scene, Barney Fife was my hero. Because there have been so many times where I have, like, the barber has turned me around and been like, so what do you think? And I've been like, this is a nightmare haircut. You've ruined the next month of my life. And be like, I love it. It's great. And Barney just like steps off the chair. And is like, you're the worst barber I've ever seen. Here's some money. Go back to school. God grant me the self-confidence to tear into a barber.
Oh, that's great. I never would have thought of that.
Yeah.
I don't get the barber every month.
Yeah.
So all of the men are sitting around doing their, like, barbershop bullshit, and they notice a bus pull up, and apparently, like, this town has so few visitors that, like...
Somebody got off this time!
Yeah!
Well, that's weird.
Their initial thing is like, is that a bus? Wait, is that a person getting off the bus? Wait, is that person getting off the bus not immediately leaving?
Is he gonna, like, come in here and use the bathroom and then leave?
Yeah, they're literally...
Maybe he has to pee.
They literally say something effective, he's coming right for us!
Yeah, they're very
He's
confused
a shark.
that a man got off the bus, and they say that, like, the bus came in from New York, but I have a hard time believing that there's a direct line from New York City to Mayberry.
Unless it took a wrong turn.
So this young man gets off the bus, and I'm gonna make another Brooklyn Nine-Nine thing, another connection to Boyle. He reminded me so much of Charles Boyle from Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Charles Boyle and a lizard person.
Yeah.
Like,
so this is just like this very odd, almost robotic way he comes in. And he's like, "Hello, Andy. Hello, Floyd. How's your rheumatism?"
Yes.
Yeah. And he, like,
how's that bowel obstruction that you've been worried about?
He's like, how is your child, Opie? And your mother figure, Aunt B. Barney, how is your something deputy? Like,
right. It's like he has, like, data points filled out. Human speech works like this.
It's deeply creepy, and
such a weird episode.
Like, it's one of the few moments where, like, watching the show, me and the people of Mayberry are on the same emotional level. Like, the people of Mayberry are like, what is happening? This feels so uncomfortable. And I'm like, yeah, no, I'm with you, Floyd. Like,
and it's very Twilight Zone-y.
Yeah.
It's super,
or Kafka-esque.
A little Twilight Zone.
The guy being in a trial, not knowing what he's being about to be convicted of.
I feel like Rod Sterling was just, like, on the edge of the screen the entire time, just, like, ready to walk on. Just, like, give me my cue. I'll do it. Like,
but they were on the same network, right? They're both CBS, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he might have been on set. Like, for all we know, Sterling may have just, like, done a touch up on this. Like, it's not outside the realm of possibility.
Which throughout the entire episode, Barney Fife, Andy, and several other characters keep on like, are we sure this isn't the Twilight Zone? Are we sure we're still the Andy Griffith Show? Like, it's cool either way, but if this is the Twilight
Zone... I want to know where my paycheck is coming
I just want to know.
If this is the Twilight Zone, you have to tell me. It's like undercover cop rules.
So this gentleman, like, makes some weird oblique references to these people's personal lives, and then he just kind of says, well, on my way, and he leaves.
Yeah.
And all of the men around the barbershop go, what the hell? What was that?
Yeah.
And Barney and Andy have a little conversation about, like, we're law enforcement. We should probably, like, look into this guy. He hasn't actually done anything wrong, but it's fucking weird.
Which, in the process of leaving, Barney does pay Floyd and say, go buy yourself a book about how to cut hair.
Yeah.
Like, one final snipe.
Yeah. Just fucked up. So then they follow him to the hotel, right?
Well, first they follow him around town. They watch him, greet a woman walking her twin babies in a stroller.
Yeah.
And say, like, they're twins, and he's like, oh, that one's Annie.
That's right.
And that one's Mark.
Like,
and
you can tell them apart?
And she's like, Mark has a mole on his left ear, and she's like, she's like, who are you? And it's like
Get away.
Yeah, like every maternal instinct kicks in that woman, and she's like, I should kill you. I should just knowing that I should kill you.
Oh my god.
But and then then Andy and Barney have a conversation where Barney just basically asks for permission to torture the guy. He's like, just let me arrest him and then give me 10 minutes alone with him.
Like Barney's already thinking spy. Very Cold War. He's like, that Soviet. That dude's a red.
Yeah.
Red. Although he also accuses him of being a German because Barney has not realized that we're not at war with Germany anymore because Barney has PTSD.
Yeah.
Why will nobody fucking address this?
Which also, there's an interesting reference to to World War II spies because he's basically like, what if he's a spy? He could be like Tokyo Rose, remember? And I looked up who Tokyo Rose was, and that was basically there were on the Pacific Theater, the Japanese would play propaganda radio, which would basically be just music that Americans would like to listen to, occasionally punctuated by a Japanese woman just telling them that they were going to lose and reading them various statistics and information that suggested that the US was losing the war. So it would be like here's some nice jazz. Also, 3 battleships were sunk today. You're going to die here. You're going to die. And Tokyo Rose turned out to be one of the 7th person to ever be tried for treason, because she was a U.S. citizen who went to visit her family in Japan. Then the war broke out. She couldn't get home, and all of her family back in the U.S. were in internment camps. So the only work she could get while she was in Japan, since it was a wartime economy, was doing propaganda radio. And there were a couple of different women who did this. There were multiple Tokyo Roses, but one woman was basically convicted for being all of them. She was eventually pardoned, but that's sort of who they're referencing is like this. I think for like soldiers, she was like this monumental like figure, like the great like turncoat spy, like Tokyo Rose.
Holy shit! Hell of a reference.
Yeah.
Deep cut. Wow.
Yeah.
All right.
They say it so knowingly, like he could be like Tokyo Rose, and I was like, that is a cool name. I'm gonna look that up.
Good that you went with that.
Yeah.
So the man makes his way to the barbershop. Not the barbershop. He makes his way to the hotel. Where we meet the hotel owner, Jason. Mm-hmm. And this man, again, does some very weird things. Where,
can I have this room because I like it better? Or?
Yeah.
Because a guy died in one of them?
That's right.
He knew the room a guy died in.
Because he was the one that did.
He got the kind of the vague implication.
Yeah. So he gives gets the key to a very different room. Like, I know that room was freshly painted, although I don't really like green. He knows what color the room was painted. So the hotel owner gives him the key, and he goes, "Bye, Jason." And the dude never said his name was Jason.
Yeah.
And so at this point, Andy and Barney come in, followed by just like a crowd of people that they've just.
It's like the Music Man when Harold Hill arrives, and everybody's just like, "Who the fuck is this?"
Yeah.
Start following.
There's like a parade of people that are just like, "What the fuck is going on?" And the point that you made earlier, Dan, is that one woman's just like, "Look, I saw a TV show about this," and I love the way she puts it. She's just like, "But it wasn't a man at all. It was a creature from the supernatural world."
Which might be another reference to the Twilight Zone, the episode The Monsters Come to Maple Street.
It feels so very Monsters on Maple Street.
Yeah.
And so like I said, they again almost directly reference the Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
And at that point, like, hearing that, Barney's suddenly way less eager to go talk to this man.
Yeah.
You could kill me.
So everyone kind of like dissipates for a little bit, but Barney decides to stick around because he wants to like search the hotel room.
The plan is put into place that Barney is going to start tailing him as he goes about his day in town.
Without a warrant or any probable cause of any kind.
Nope, that's the designated crime for the episode, is Barney surveils and tries to steal the property of a man with no warrant. He eventually...
Once again, though, we have not gotten that Supreme Court ruling yet, I believe, so I don't think he needs one.
Miranda? Warrantless?
Yeah. This whole, so the entirety of the Andy Griffith Show, as explained to us by an actual lawyer, that we somehow talked into doing this, was that this was basically almost like in a Wild West period where there was no accountability for cops whatsoever.
All the like civil rights procedures that we like know today don't exist yet. They're all going to happen pretty much in the course of this show, in the next 8 years of this show.
God.
Yeah.
So again, what Barney's doing right now, not illegal at the time.
Yeah.
Oh, dear.
Barely illegal now, to be honest.
Yeah. But Barney begins surveilling this guy. The events of this show are so, like, wishy-washy. It jumps between just Andy vaguely, like, discussing him, and then townspeople being pissed, and then him going about his day creeping people out so suddenly that you can't really, like, break it up into individual scenes.
Yeah, I mean...
Like, they sort of melt together.
It's all melding together. So I'm going to skip to the part where Barney decides to search the hotel room, and he reaches, like, Jason, the hotel owner, is gone. He's out of the room. And Barney just, like sneaks behind and slides his hand into the cubbyhole where the keys are kept and gets it stuck in a mousetrap.
Yeah.
And then Andy comes in.
Well deserved.
Andy comes in and catches him with his hands in the cubby. Just like, what are you doing? What's going on there? So Andy lectures him for tailing this guy and for going after him when he hasn't really done anything wrong, other than be very weird. Finally, we have a scene where Andy is back at his office in the courtroom in the jailhouse, and he's on the phone with a gentleman who owns the gas station. Correct?
Yeah. He's in the process of trying to purchase the gas station.
Yeah.
Not Andy, but
the visitor.
No, the visitor is in the process of trying to purchase the gas station. Andy is basically talking to him and discussing with the gas station owner how freaked out he is by the prospect of this of this transaction happening.
Right.
Yeah, basically the phone conversation is, I think it's basically just the gas station owner calling Andy to be like, hey, legally, can I just not sell it to this dude because he's fucking weird? And Andy's like, legally, I guess you can.
Yeah. Then there's the next,
oh god.
The next
Lucy.
thing that the stranger is doing. He's trying to find love.
He's harassing a woman.
Yes.
Yeah. So the stranger enters the courthouse and says, hi, Andy. I have a favor to ask. After I purchase business, could you be witness and offer a human signature?
I would like to begin courting one of your women shortly after.
Yeah, he reveals to Andy that he has been knocking at the door of a young woman named Lucy, who we've never seen before.
And neither has he, we find out.
Yep.
Yeah. He hasn't seen this woman, but he is in love with her.
And wants to marry her.
Yeah, and he's just like, I'm here to court Lucy. And he's like, has Lucy opened the door? And he's like, I don't think that matters. I love her.
What does that matter?
So fucking creepy. And to be honest, like, I kind of feel for this dude throughout this episode.
Until this point.
Until this point.
Yeah,
Jesus
until this point.
Christ.
Yeah.
Let me finish my sentence.
Yeah. I felt the same way, though, because I mentioned publicly before that I'm a person on the autism spectrum, and you misread signals, especially when you're still learning about somebody's mannerisms, and I've even in the job that I'm in now, if I see certain people in the pictures that we use in our marketing, and then I meet them in real life, I sometimes come off sounding like a creep. Like, I don't know you, but I've seen you before, and I'm so glad to finally meet you. And they're just like, what the fuck is this?
Oh, holy shit.
Yeah.
Once again, connecting to modern television, there was an episode of Netflix's One Day at a Time, which is wonderful and you shall be watching it. There was an episode of Netflix's One Day at a Time about a teenage girl who is trying to impress her girlfriend as they go to the dance, and she wants to impress her girlfriend and show how many friends she has, but she doesn't actually know these people. So she's like gotten all their information off of social media. It's just like, hey, Kurt, remember last year when you went to Mexico? That was so much fun. It's the exact same plot, actually.
Yeah.
Except, like, it's a character that you already know from beforehand. So this isn't an uncommon bit. We should get into the fact, though, that Lucy shows up at the courthouse to get a restraining order.
Yeah. Lucy rolls in and she's like, there's a lunatic knocking on my door. I'm being harassed. I need you to do law.
Yeah.
Like,
And Andy, of course, is just like, No!
Yeah.
Get a leg of lamb and solve it yourself. Come on.
His default state of, let's all calm down now. I'm sure there's a middle ground between him wanting you to be his wife and you not wanting to have to be harassed on a daily basis. We can make this work for everybody.
There's a compromise in here somewhere. Andy, fucking enforce the law once.
Once, enforce the law even a little bit. I get that you have a very flexible view of it, but just do it even ever, like once, one time.
Just do your fucking job, Andy. What is the point of you?
What? Why do we allow you? Like, oh, he'll enforce the law when it's like, when he wants to stop women from voting, but like, a woman is in clear and present danger from a creepy lunatic.
Let's all think about this for a second.
Yeah.
Let's put the brakes on.
Let's point the brakes.
Jump to conclusion.
Now, is this guy creeping everyone in town out? Yes. Is he currently punching your door on a regular basis? Also, yes. Am I going to do literally anything about it? I feel like this situation will work itself out. And even before that scene, the guy's like, I think I love her. And Andy is like, you're crazy.
Yeah.
You're an insane person.
He flat out says, like he's just like a great timepiece. He's like, hey, do you think we'll ever get to the moon?
That scene is
NASA paid them to put that in. They're like, you just start to get the conversation started, so that we're just surprised in a couple of years.
It in there.
It's a solid zinger. He's like, 'cause you're already there.
Oh my god.
It's such a good zinger.
So when a man says it, Andy is just like, I'm happy to tell you what I fucking think of you. When a woman says it, I don't think that's how it went down.
Yeah.
I think you're wrong.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's not that bad.
So Andy sends Lucy home. Like, all right, I'll figure this out. You just go along home now, young lady.
Uh-huh.
Like, and Lucy's like 21.
Yeah.
She's a grown woman.
Like, I went to college, guys.
Like, nobody in Mayberry goes to college. Marta.
Yeah. Ellie shows up having gone to college and they're like, ooh, look at the college girl.
That's true.
Yeah.
True. She's the most educated person in this entire... Oh my god, she's the most qualified to be in council. She's the only one
Just
with a
like
fucking
2016.
degree.
Yeah.
She's the only one who has a degree. I didn't even think of that.
Yeah, no, that's like the basis of like why she should be running for council. She's the only one of them that is at all competent at anything ever.
Yeah.
Holy shit. Okay.
She should be the mayor.
Glad we all came to that understanding.
Fuck. Okay.
Let's
so
just
he-
take
so
that
he sends-
revelation and edit it back in.
So he sends Lucy home, and then he's like, bro, what the fuck is your deal?
Yeah.
He basically just like sits this guy down and just like,
You gotta tell me what this is about.
what is going on here?
Yeah.
And the dude like starts to have a little breakdown. He's like, it didn't work. Nothing worked. Oh my, he's like beating himself up. He's like a minute away from like literally physically harming himself.
Before we do his explanation, I need to say, I don't believe it for a goddamn second. It is a clear lie. It is a lie. Go ahead.
Alright. So here's the explanation that this weird man gives for
This
like
reptile creature.
for all of this knowledge that he's
Scouting out for the
obtained.
next race to come in from the outer space.
He served in the army with a guy named Joe Larson from Mayberry. Son of Pete and Edie Larson. Thank you, Wikipedia. Or Mayberry Wiki. And...
Mayberry Wiki. God, man. Properly credit them.
Yeah. Sorry, so he befriended Joe Larson. Joe Larson would tell him stories about back home. Back home, tell him stories about Mayberry. And he started to really love these stories about Mayberry. Even to the point where, like, when he and Joe Larson weren't together, he starts subscribing to the newspaper. The Mayberry newspaper. And he has it, like, sent to him. So he's, like, he like, falls in love with this idea. And, like, has this fictional Mayberry built up in his brain. Which is a little bit meta. I think you could do, like, if I was going to remake Pleasantville, I'd base it off of this episode.
But the explanation is he read the Mayberry newspaper for so long that he felt like he knew the people in town.
Right.
My question would be, how fucking detailed is the Mayberry newspaper that they're talking about what ears, twins' ears have moles on them? Like, they're like, if you need to differentiate between...
Or the barber's rheumatism?
Yeah, like, is it like the weekly update on everyone's medical conditions? Like,
I mean,
there were newspapers during the time of the plague that would list how everybody died that week.
And to be fair, like, I think that is exactly what a newspaper in 1960 backwoods-ass tiny North Carolina town would be like. And I'm sure it's not a daily paper. It's probably just more like a gossip rag. Like, it's just like one couple that like gets the dirt on everybody and is always bothering people. Remember, we've seen the Mayberry Gazette, I think is the name of the newspaper. We've seen it once before because they did a big write-up on Barney. Because he was like the big hero that stopped that one crime. And they like dedicated a full page spread to the one crime that ever fucking happened. Remember, like, there's nothing ever happens in this town, so, but they want to have a newspaper. This is something that's true of small towns, I feel like.
Well, nothing ever happens in this town. There's a rampant moonshining ring and hillbillies shooting each other with shotguns in the woods every single day.
And a man beating his wife with a leg of lamb.
Yeah.
This is a weird thing.
They have the one-man crime spree that is Otis.
This is a weird complex that small towns have, is that they're so, like, adamantly proud of being small towns where, like, everything's quiet and safe, but they also have this weird, like, inferiority complex where, like, we're just as big as good as those big cities. We're just as good. Look at our newspaper. We've got all sorts of interesting things going on. So I completely believe that Mayberry would have a newspaper, even though they don't fucking need one.
Yeah.
But there'd just be a newspaper, but to fill the pages, they would just be like, well, looks like, like, you know why they're reporting on Floyd the Barber's rheumatism? That's the weather report.
Yeah. How is
his joints are aching, so it might rain on Tuesday. Like,
how is he able to pick out everyone's face? Like,
he's seen pictures of them.
Oh,
they have a photographer.
I guess so. They're just taking pictures. I guess this is more of a statement on like it didn't occur to me how fucking granular a small town newspaper could get.
Yeah, no, I believe that. I believe that entirely. So, but
I still don't believe him.
Oh, I still think this dude's lying, but
yeah.
Like, it's plausible. So he built this up. He fell in love with Mayberry, and he fell in love with Lisa. And honestly, I want to know what the fuck articles are written about Lisa that got this dude all like hot and bothered for her.
Lisa, measurements. Like, they're just quoting her on like how good a picnic was, and it's like Lisa (parentheses measurements). God, just like Lisa, who enjoys this, and this hobbies.
And missionary.
Yeah.
Just throw all this stuff in there. Oh my god.
Christ.
Start drinking.
Oh my god, absolutely fucking shit.
Just like, yeah. No, again, like someone, like, he should have heard that explanation and been like, alright, but still fuck you. Like,
yeah, right, this is still not okay.
This is still,
but I'm gonna offer a dissent here, because again, as somebody who has a disability where you cannot read facial expressions until you really get to know someone, you don't always know when something that you have very good intentions about comes off as really fucking creepy. So I think I might have had a very different reading than you guys did from this episode. I genuinely felt bad for the guy, with the exception of the point when he's harassing someone. And I'm pretty sure in the pursuit of love in the past, I probably have crossed a line without knowing, like, that was really creepy or that was inappropriate, because context and learning about human behaviors is very different when you have a brain that is really abstract.
And you know what? Even in, like, today's online scape, I did it this week. Even when you've had, like, a quote-unquote conversation with a person that is, like, remotely from you. Mm-hmm. So, this week, I, like, found somebody that I knew from Twitter and had conversations with. And then I, like, went to introduce myself to them, because we were, like, at a public gathering, and I recognized this person. And I was like, hi, person from the internet. Oh. We just kind of she looked at me for a little bit and was like, oh, you!
Yeah.
And I, like, awkwardly came in, like, in the middle of her having a conversation with someone else. And I was like, this was poor timing. Oh. And then I was just like, this is an awkward, uncomfortable situation.
Did you say that out loud?
I did not. I just kind of like, you know what? I'll come back or something. Like, you know. Aww. On the other hand, I have had that same interaction work out very well. It's a crapshoot.
Yeah.
But, yeah, you know what? Yeah, you know, I'll buy it. I'll buy it. Okay.
And you know what?
Realizing they're awkward and really feeling bad about it.
Or thinking like, just thinking that you know somebody better than you actually do.
Yep.
From, like, the quote-unquote interactions, using that term very loosely.
And they do. I think the reason they sort of accept this in lieu of autism, the reason that they immediately go like, oh, that's why the war. He's like, I came back from the war, and they're like,
PTSD.
okay, yeah. He's
The brain.
I think they're basically using shell shock as like, oh, that's why this guy is kind of
before
off.
PTSD, it was the condition where soldiers come back and like they're afraid of military hats. There's actual video footage of people from World War I. Guy takes off his hat, holds it in front of the soldier. Soldier starts to have a meltdown because he's associated some really fucked up memories with a piece of clothing.
Yeah.
So yeah, first it was shell shock, then PTSD, and it just kind of evolved.
Which it was a thing that didn't need to be stated at all. He literally just says war, and Andy just goes, "Oh, yep,
everybody
got
snaps
it."
into line.
Yeah, there's
Okay.
not a line explaining it. They're just like they just meet and go like war, and then there's like a subconscious explanation for any weird behavior.
I want to like explain how this episode ends, and then I have a question for you too. All right, so the next thing that happens is now Andy understands the situation, and he explains. He's like, you know what? These people will get to know you, but you have gone way too far, way too fast. You got to slow down. You got to give them time. It's like letting a dog get to know you before you pet it. And he's just like, just calm down. Just pump the brakes a little bit, buddy. And our stranger, his name is Ed, by the way, which I think is bullshit. That's not his name.
Yeah, nope.
Yeah. So Ed, I'm doing air quotes, walks out of the
And is the whole
courthouse.
town waiting for him when he
The
gets
whole
in?
town is ready
They're
to.
to beat the shit out of him.
Yeah, it's Lisa's brother who
Lucy. Are we talking about Lucy, the girl who
Lucy.
was harassed? Okay.
Yeah.
She has a name, Marty.
I think we've called her Susie, Lucy, and Lisa so far.
Sluicy.
We may never know what her name is.
Alright, so Lucy's brother is there just ready to beat the crap out of this dude. And you know what? Again, I'm kind of on his side.
Yep, no,
Just
I
in-
totally agree.
on that
he crossed the
particular...
line.
Yeah.
The entire town is there to not to watch, to surround him and make sure there's no escape.
Yeah,
Like,
they are going to, like, tar and feather him and run... They even say, we're going to run him out of town.
Uh-huh.
There may be some pitchforks in that crowd. Like, they treat him like he's Frankenstein's monster and just killed a child. Like,
Uh-huh.
based off of his general demeanor and like his weird robot lizard like person, I get it.
yeah, no, I'm not blaming the town of Mayberry for this one. But as stuff is coming to a head, once again, Andy takes up and talks down to everybody and says, hey, listen up, everyone. Y'all got this wrong. Here's how this went down. He explains, like, the only crime that this man has committed is loving this town too much.
Nope.
And also harassment.
Yeah.
And there was that one too, but more importantly, loving this town.
And this is the fucked up part. After, like, Andy talks down everybody and they're like, okay, we'll accept him.
Easy to sway is this town.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, maybe this town shouldn't vote.
Yeah.
To be honest. Because,
The
like,
most easily convinced town ever. They're immediately like, yeah, no, on board, totally.
yeah, so then the, like, gas station owner's like, come on by, I'll sell you that gas station. And the hotel owner's like, it's cheaper if you rent by the week, man. And then, this is the fucked up part, Lucy is just like, I'd be okay if you came and courted me today. No!
Have
Lucy.
him like a sentence. Talk to him literally at all.
And it's also just like a really fucked up, like, it completely undercuts the moral that Andy just said. Because Andy's whole thing was slow it down. And turns out, no, you don't need to slow it all because, like, the entire town just like, nope. We're
gonna keep moving on this train.
You just say the code word war, and everyone's like, well, nope, we're gonna give you a house, we're gonna give you a business, we're gonna give you a wife. Here you go. Welcome to Mayberry.
And
It's like
the GI Bill. He needs an education.
Yeah.
right after Lucy, like her brother should have just walked in and be like, and here's a key to our house. Swing by anytime, day or night.
Like by the end of this episode, I'm pretty sure that Ed is on city council and Ellie is not.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, all right, so. Wait, before because I don't believe Ed's story still. What was your question?
my question is this. So we mentioned the episode The Monsters Are Due on Maple Street earlier. And that episode is famously a metaphor for xenophobia. And Rod Serling comes out and basically gives this whole monologue about, like, we're so worried about people from the outside, and we turn on ourselves, and blah blah blah. Do you think that a xenophobia metaphor was what they were going for here in this episode? Because Andy kind of steps up in his monologue where he's finally saying, like, you're all afraid of outsiders. Mm-hmm. You're afraid of this man for being an outsider. Do you think that that's what they were going for?
I think it could have been that, but the problem is he read the newspaper and he had too many intimate details. Now, there are people that move into a small town that are not from there. Maybe they did research on best places to eat. If they didn't speak the language, they took a class where they were and then came in. This guy had intimate details, so there was a layer beyond xenophobia for me. So I'm saying no.
Yeah, no, I don't think. I think they might have been trying to go for that, but they
failed miserably.
Yeah,
it wouldn't be the first time that the Andy Griffith Show tried to put out a moral and failed miserably.
Yeah,
I mean. I'm leaving it open to possibility. I think that they weren't they weren't going to go so far as to have a black man show up on TV. Oh God!
Yeah, but, he was from the different country of being too socially forward.
Yeah, so I feel like both of these episodes were like the Andy Griffith Show trying to be fairly progressive and just tripping over their own dicks.
So, do you believe his So, all right. So one thing that stood out. To me from watching is at one point he's talking about what is the guy's name, Joe, his bunkmate.
His bunkmate, yeah.
He was talking about Joe. He's like, it sounds so great to be from somewhere, and Andy is like, well, everyone's from somewhere,
and he's like, open the door for him to describe what he's doing,
and he's like, I'm not. I have no family, and I've lived in hotels my entire life.
Please
son
expound.
Of a prostitute.
Yeah, no, and then
shit.
Wait, what?
Shit, say that
son
again.
Of a prostitute.
Oh, that's valid. I was just I heard that and I was immediately like, alien. He's an alien. He is an alien that landed.
Yeah,
son of a prostitute.
Or son of a prostitute.
Or he could just be an orphan.
Hey. But what orphanage has a hotel, though?
I mean...
Or what orphans live in a hotel? They would be put in an institution.
Possibly. Mm-hmm. But, when he says his whole life, maybe he means his adult life.
He says that he's not from anywhere. He's like, I'm not from anywhere.
Well, it reminds me of Chuck Klosterman.
Yeah,
but Chuck Klosterman, in one of his essays, he wrote questions that he likes to ask people to find out, is this just an acquaintance or is this somebody I'm going to get close with? One of them was, you're sitting in a bar, guy comes in, and you look over, and the bartender says, don't talk to that man. He has no past. Second guy comes in, sits down at the bar, bartender says, don't talk to him, he has a past. Which guy are you more likely to talk to based on, do you want to talk to the one that has no past or the one that has a past?
I don't know how I'm going to relate this back to Andy Griffith's Show, but that's a really good question. No past guy.
Yeah, no past. Because, again,
mysterious as all
same
hell.
thing. Nobody has no past.
Right, but I like knowing that the one guy has a past because I have some expectations now. Hey, if you do something really random, it's oh, okay, because you have a past and maybe some fucked up stuff happened in that past, we'll work on it. But when I have nothing to I have nothing to hang my hat on and really find out, am I safe with you? At least I know with the other guy, there might be some quirks here and there might be a moment where I have to opt out and say, this is a little too much for me, I'm gonna go home now. With the other guy, you don't know what you're getting yourself into, and the fear of the unknown is something that makes me very uneasy.
Yeah, for me, it would just be pure curiosity. What the fuck does no past mean? Nobody. You mean he didn't exist prior to opening that door and coming in this bar?
Honestly, I hear that guy has a past, and I'm immediately okay, so he's going to tell me about his divorce the entire time. That doesn't sound appealing at all.
All right, so let's go ahead, unless y'all got something else, let's go and wrap this episode up. This one pretty long. So if you've never listened to the show before, or if you've never been on the show before, we end each episode by rating our two Andy Griffith Show episodes on two scales. One is our Andy meter, which is how good is this episode? How much did we actually enjoy watching it? Mm-hmm. And the second one is the FIFO meter, which is how horrifying is the shit that goes down in this episode.
Or morally reprehensible.
Yeah, or morally reprehensible, sure.
And what's the scale that we're...
1 to 10.
Yeah.
1 being not at all, and 10 being holy shitballs, this is
exactly.
not...
Yes.
Exactly. So starting with episode 10, Ellie for Council. 1 through 10 Andes. Marta, how good is this episode? How much did you like it?
I really liked Ellie running for council. The thing that did it for me was the girlfriend running out in her slip being like, well, this just won't stand. I'm going to go show him right now. I wanted her to come back, though, so I'll give it a 9.
9 Andes.
All right.
9 Andes.
I'd say, in terms of story, it's not that funny at any point.
The montages are funny.
The montages are funny. Other than that, it's not... I'd say 5.
Oh, man.
I see any episode I think that focuses on Ellie, on Eleanor Donahue, because she's so much better than everyone else, is guaranteed 5 Andes from me. And I'll give it another, although this one does bother me because her characterization and her motives are all over the place. She doesn't
really have anything to do in this besides get mildly pissed off.
And those montages were funny, so I'm gonna go with I'm gonna give it 7 Andes. I'm gonna land in the middle here. Alright, now. 5 scores.
Holy shit.
Right.
I mean, is there an 11 on the 5 score?
Bearing in mind that, not only are we using domestic violence as a punchline, 4 times, we're just all chill with it, but
voter
also,
suppression.
a voter suppression campaign, managed by the most powerful man in town, which Andy is.
Yeah.
So, I'm gonna go ahead and, Marta, you can do whatever you want with it. Dan and I have to try to put this in context of other things that we've seen. It's horrifying.
Oh,
right.
crap. Okay, so what...
But it's not as bad as committing a crime or staging a crime that didn't happen.
I'm gonna
That's hard! That's so hard!
Really hard. I'm gonna go
one of them is
8.5 fives. It's up there.
Alright, so what did we rank? Was the staged robbery a 9?
Yeah, I think we did.
Okay, so that's hard, because one of them is a felony, and the other one is a civil rights violation. I'm gonna put it even. It's also a 9.
9 fives. All right.
Yeah, they're dead heat. Marta, how morally reprehensible is this?
I'm gonna go with a 9.
All right.
I'm gonna go on the higher end of the spectrum.
Really, really high on them 5 scales.
Yeah,
all right.
It's a good episode, but there's a lot of problems with it.
Again, this would be if this happened in modern day. We would see the hearing for this on C-SPAN.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, so the next episode 12, Stranger in Town, Andy Meter. Marta?
Stranger in Town. I didn't enjoy it as much as episode 10. I think, the creepy meter. It felt again, we were saying earlier, it's like they were in a Twilight Zone episode and didn't realize it until it got really weird.
Yeah.
So, I'm gonna say 7. 7 Andys for this episode. It's okay, but...
I'd say 6 Andys.
See, I'm on the opposite. I liked this episode a lot because of its weird Twilight Zone and because it made me feel uncomfortable and had that this is the first time that I've felt uncomfortable and awkward, and the Andy Griffith Show was trying to make me feel that way.
Counterpoint though, this was also the first time we couldn't remember the order of scenes. It's that muddled and confused of an episode of TV that we can't remember the order in which things happened.
You know what? You make a good point. I'm gonna also go 7
yeah.
Andes. And then how FIFO-meter, the only thing that really bothers me a whole lot about this is the Lucy thing. But then again, I gave 4 to a kid, having a shotgun pointed at his face. So,
you got priorities.
I fucked that scale up all sorts of...
We really have to create, a living document of this.
So, I'm gonna say 5 fives.
I'm gonna say... there is also the unlawful search. 5 fives. Yeah, 5 fives, really just the complete disregard for a woman's personal safety.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with 5 fives as well. It's not good, but it's not pointing a gun in a kid's face.
It's not nearly as bad as it has been previously.
Yeah, and compared to the last episode.
Yeah.
Alright, so let's go ahead and wrap ourselves up here.
So one thing to mention, we have new music and new art. Should credit the people that have contributed that.
Yes. So we have new music, new art. Max Ludwig.
You can follow him at Sleepy Talkie.
At Sleepy Talkie on Twitter. And our art is from...
Emily Christina, who you can find at Scribemily.
On Instagram and
on Instagram.
Yep. You can, where can you find us? You can find us, email us, all of your, thoughts on the Andy Griffith Show. You can email us, breakingmayberry@gmail.com.
We have an email account now?
We do.
Send it spam every day.
Sweet.
Follow us on Twitter, @BreakMayberry. You can follow me on Twitter. I am @SchneidRemarks. That's SCHNEID Remarks. Daniel?
@The Luds.
Marta?
Marta Rusek. That's MartaRusek.
And I think our per episode thing, tweet at Ron Howard. Just tweet at Ron Howard.
Just a couple of blips on Ron Howard.
Just you don't have to specifically promote us. Just tweet at him.
Just let him know how you're doing.
Yeah, just tell Ron Howard about your day.
If you like this episode, of course, be sure to share it with your friends, subscribe. We'll be on iTunes, so you can listen to us on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure to rate, review, subscribe, do all those things that you do. Until next time, we will see y'all down at the fishing hole.
I'm partial to Sugar Lump. I could go along.
Sugar Lump will work. Cream Puff explicitly means a weak person.
I think you should really just insult people by just giving different pastries.
Yeah.
Shut the hell up, you maple donut.
You what?
You
Claire?
chocolatey Claire, you.
Cannoli sounds. You can't do cannoli. That sounds racist.
Yep. No, that's because that has been used as a racist slur.
I've also heard people use oh crap, was it cannoli as a sexual thing? I'll fill that cannoli up, and it's oh god.
Is cannoli a dick?
Well,
no,
cannoli...
I would say cannoli is the vagina, right?
Yeah.
Because you put the cream inside of it.
Oh.